Hi guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about your review. So I set up this problem in class today, right? We said Julie made $9.50 an hour. She worked a total of 3.5 hours, 3.5. So for each hour, she earned $9.50. So I'm going to multiply her hourly rate times 3.5 hours, right? And so when I come up with my answer, I end up with 33.250. Now, if we go back to the problem, it says, how much does she earn in all? This doesn't look like a dollar amount, right? But I do notice that there's a zero here in the thousands, and we don't have thousands in money, right? So if I cover that up, since that's a thousandth and there are zero of them, this looks more like money to me, right? So again, always make sure that your answers make sense. So in my dollar sign here, she makes a total of $33.25. Okay. Number 2, we did in class. We had many different ways to do this. I'm going to talk about this again in another problem. All right, problem number 3 is division. So I'm going to set this up. First number goes in the house, right? And I'm going to make sure I copy this correctly. 3.78, so 3 7/800 divided by 3/10. Now, I can't solve this problem until I get rid of the decimal, right? And so I'm going to create an equivalent expression, okay? So I'm going to get rid of this 3, or the decimal, by moving this over to the right one time. What that means is we're multiplying 3 by 10. How do we make 3/10 into a whole number 3? We multiply by 10, okay? So I'm going to rewrite the problem because that's a great habit to do. Now, when I multiply this number by 10, I'm also going to multiply my dividend by 10, okay? And that means I'm moving this decimal point over one time. 3 7/800 multiplied by 10 equals 37.8. Okay, so this is an equivalent expression. This is what it looks like. 37.8 divided by 3, right? Again, just to review that. Okay, so here is my new problem. I do have a decimal point here. This is a whole number, so I'm good to go to divide, but I am going to move this decimal point up to the roof. Okay, now I'm going to divide. 3 goes into 3 one time. I'm going to subtract, end up with 0. I'm going to bring down my next number, which is a 7. 3 goes into 7 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. I'm left with 1. 1 is smaller than 3. Now I'm going to bring down my 8. 3 goes into 18 6 times exactly. 6 times 3 is 18. I have no remainder. So my answer is 12 6/10. Okay. All right, moving on to the next problem. 4 25/100 goes into the house. 1 25/100 goes on the outside. Okay, so again, I have to get rid of my decimal. Now, I have to move this decimal point over 2 times. Every time I move the decimal point over, I'm doing a times 10 and another times 10. Okay, 10 times 10 is 100. So when I turn 1 25/100 into whole number 125, in essence, I am multiplying this number by 100 to get that number. If I need to then multiply this number by 100, right? Moving the decimal point over 2 times. I end up with a whole number 425. So again, just for practice, right? This is an equivalent expression. 4 25/100 is the same thing as 425 divided by 125. Okay? All right, now to multiply. I have a big number here, 125. I know it doesn't go into 4. I know it doesn't go into 42. So 125 goes into 425. We can estimate. If I round this down to 100, 100 times 4 is 400. So 125, I'm going to try 4, and I'm going to see what happens. Yep, did I get that right? Yes, 500. Okay, too big. So I have to go down by 1. So 125 times 3. That's 15. That's 6. That's 7. 375. This goes in 3 times. So 125 times 3 is 375. I'm going to subtract. I'm going to do mental math. If I think about money, right? $3.75. How do I get up to $4.25? It's 50 cents, right? Count by 25s. All right. I'm checking. Is 50 smaller than 125? Yes, it is. Now, I'm not done. I cannot leave this as a remainder. Now, this is whole number 425. I cannot just add in a 0. That's changing the value of this number. I have to add a decimal point here. That means I'm adding 0/10, right? I'm not adding any additional value. Okay, if I have a decimal point here, got to make sure it goes up on top. All right, now I'm going to bring my 0 down. 125 goes into 500. Oh, here was my first guess. My work is already done for me. 125 times 4 is 500. Okay, 500 minus 500, 0 remainder. Final answer, 3 4/10. Okay. So here we go with equivalent expressions, right? So here was this practice that we've been doing. I have 2 numbers. It says write 2 expressions that are equal to, right? These 2 numbers. You can multiply them each by 10. You can multiply them each by 100. You can divide by 10. You can divide by 100. You can divide by 1,000. You get the idea, okay? Another way, if you forget what you're doing, set this up as if you are going to solve it, and then maybe that'll get your brain juices going. Okay, so if I were to set this up, I would set this up as 4263 divided by 4 2/10. Okay, so I need to get rid of the decimal. I'm going to multiply it by 10 to make 42. If I multiply this by 10, I'm going to multiply this by 10. And then this becomes 426 3/10. This is an equivalent expression. So this now becomes 426 3/10 divided by 42. Okay, so that's one equivalent expression. Okay, so I'm going to write that here. So one expression would be 426 3/10 divided by 42. Now I'm going to go back to the original expression, and I'm going to, let's see, I multiplied by 10. I'm going to multiply by 100. That's easy to do. I'm going to multiply this number by 100, and I'm going to multiply this number by 100 to create an equivalent expression. Okay, if I multiply this number by 100, I move this over 2 times. 1, 2. It becomes whole number 4,263. Okay, and then this number, 4 2/10 multiplied by 100, I have 2 zeros. I need to move this number over, the decimal point over 2 times. 1, I have nothing here. That means I need to create that 0, right? Move it over 2 times. So now it becomes whole number 420. Okay, so these are several options. Oh, did I just write that incorrectly? 420. 4,263. What did I do? Divided by times 2, 420. Right? I just lost my train of thought here. What did I do? 426 3/10. 1. Oh, I moved this over 1 time. 4.2. Right? Yeah, there we go. I forgot to put my decimal point in there, the first one. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop this video since I don't want to go over my allotted 10 minutes. And so I'm going to continue on in the next video.